First of all, thanks for coming in. Going by the reports that you have done, and if you have to send a report next year, and I know that you've said that it's an annual report, the report that has gone to Europe already on the nitrates, in your opinion, would it be any better, or what way would it be than what was sent before?
Which report? The midterm review report?
Yeah.
Well, that was a one-off exercise. We haven't repeated that assessment using the latest data. I don't.
We can maybe just say, like, I suppose we can see from our indicators report this year, like, that, you know, there hasn't been a lot of change in 2023 versus 2022, and even since about 2020, you know, we had seen nitrate levels increasing, particularly in the south and southeast, up until about 2020, and they're sort of stuck there at too high a level. So that's, we can't really predict ahead, but that's where we're at now.
Okay. We'll take one county, that Leitrim. I think there was one irrigation farmer and he's gone out of it. Phosphorus in Leitrim was high on reports that would have looked at. Leitrim is covered in forestry. Was that the cause in Leitrim?
So there's a mix of issues in the counties in the west in comparison to the southeast. As you know, the nitrate issues are typically high in the south and southeast and the east. So yeah, in the counties in the west, there's a mix of pressures. There is an agricultural contribution, although it's not related to necessarily the level of intensity of farming. And we had a bit of this earlier from one of the earlier questions. The issue with phosphorus is more about the poorly draining soils and the runoff bringing the sediment and the phosphorus from sometimes very low stocked farms. You know, it's not a stock and rate relationship. It's more about.
But in your experience, the West would have a high percentage of forestry. Is that I see you've done a chart there on the pressures, and you look at it nationally. Just a question, and to be interesting, the likes of Leitrim that was down as high in phosphorus, is it forestry? Because, like, a huge percentage of Leitrim is forestry at the moment.
I wouldn't have a county by county breakdown in front of me here, but certainly forestry would be a contributing factor.
Actually, is it? Can a person have ye that information? Yeah.
We would have it. Yeah, we could pull it out. Yeah.
There's people involved in the farming groups, and there's one guy, I think, in Paul's Daly's own county, but there's farmers around the country are watching a lot of stuff that's going on, and they're getting very proactive. There seems to be huge runoff. Look at when you see sort of green grass growing beyond a sewage treatment plant, you know that there's something coming out, to put it simple. And we're getting constant photos day in, day out near sewage treatment plants right around this country. From the farming community, who are now gone very proactive watching this. And this would be phosphorus I'd be talking about. That there is huge amount of clear water before the treatment plants, and after it, it's not so good looking. Now, with photos, we can always send them to you. And a question I'd ask you, how come in a lot of treatment plants in this country that the more it rains, the less loads that's taken out, and the finer the weather you have, the more loads that's taken out? And you're supposed to be watching that. So you're supposed to take away from a sewage treatment plant, the lorries go in and they suck out from the tanks, right? And ironically enough, the more it rains, the less loads. It's there. If you were looking at the job, you get Irish Water's or Irish Gardens reports. And you look at the amount of loads that's moved from one place to another treatment plant to be sorted. And that data is there for you. And how come that in a lot of these places where the movement of loads has to happen, and you have this data that, we'll just say July of last year was a real wet month. There'd be more loads or less loads taken out when you'd have more water flying around the place, coming through both wastewater and we'll say storm and foul, than there is in dry weather. How could you answer that question?
I'm not sure about the detail of that, but I suppose what we can tell you is we are the environmental regulator for Uiscéireann. We are equally focused on reducing the pressure from wastewater, inadequately treated wastewater. We have a priority list where there's 73 areas on that list that the EPA has put together for Uiscéireann, directing where we want to see their investment going to improve water quality. So the inspection programme happens on an annual basis.
Yeah, I take your point.
The prosecutions are happening.
Yeah, I understand the inspections happens on an annual basis.
And we were responding to incidents as they happen. We've all hear about.
Is there
this
anybody
season.
checking on the recording in every plant? You talk about 73. Many plants have Irish water around the country.
500.
Yeah. So we're talking about
500 licenses.
Licensed sites.
about 15% of them that you're looking at. Would that be fair to say? 73 you're saying is.
No, that's a priority action list. We're licensing about 500. 500 have a small, lower number of certificates.
Is there any person in?
No, sorry, I just want to finish. And we are inspecting about 200 plants on an annual basis.
All right. Okay, that's all right. On an annual basis, is that once a year?
Or more if it's required.
Yeah, well, on average, what is it?
200 visits.
Yeah, 200 visits a year.
200 visits, okay, that's all right. But what the question I am asking, and this is throwing it out to you, I presume you have all the records of every plant in Ireland, have you?
It depends. Records for what?
The records of loads taken out to see, the loads taken out brought to another treatment plant, or what was, basically there's a flow meter, right? To put it simple, for anyone that understands sewerage, there's a flow meter in and there's a flow meter out, to put it simple. So when you basically treat your sewerage, you'll have a flow meter that goes out to say I let out so many cube and I took in so many cube. Or I took away so many cube to be treated somewhere else if that plant wasn't fit to do it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Yeah. So is that cubes looked at by ye, what came in, what went out and what went away? And what I'm saying to you, and I'm putting it to ye, because I know what I'm talking about here, that in wet weather, when you should have more cubes going through because of the volumes, or else, if you can only cater for 100 cube an hour, you can't cater for 150, so you have to take some away. So what I am asking is anybody in the EPA following the number or the cubes that comes in and the cubes that come out on all the flow meters? Is there a data record of that? Have ye the possession of that? And is there someone analysing that? Because that's where you will know whether sewerage is being fully treated or going down a river or whatever is, or being taken away. That will tell you A, B, C. It's like doing maths. And I am asking, is there somebody that ye have in it looking after those 500 plants, analysing every aspect of that, and what has it shown up? Because I have seen things going on and other people have reported other things going on, that I'm not shocked that phosphorus is high in Ireland, and I would be very wary that farmers are taking the brunt of phosphorus when in other areas there may be a bigger problem. That's what I'm pushing to you.
Ash, do you want to take this? There's a very detailed question. We may need to come back to you, but do you want to take this
I suppose I can try and address it somewhat for you.
Thanks.
So I suppose, as Emer outlined, there's approximately little over 500 wastewater discharge licences issued to Uiscéireann. They specify the level of treatment and the quality of the discharge that they are allowed emit to whichever receiving water, whether river, sea or whatever. And those licenses also specify the level of monitoring, the detail of monitoring, frequency of monitoring that Uiscéireann must undertake. That data is submitted to the EPA and would be looked at. The specifics of the movement between sites may not be, because the licence is a discharge licence. It's a discharge to a receiving water. So the focus is on the discharge.
Yeah, right, and I take your point, and thank you for answering that. But what I am asking you is, are ye monitoring, say if I have a sewage treatment plant there, and that it's like having a 100 horsepower tractor and a 200 horsepower tractor, to put it simply. You know what I'm on about. The production or the processing of it, this one could be one size and that one could be twice the size. And what I am asking ye is, do ye know the cubes of sewage that comes into that? Have ye that data? And the cubes of sewage that was treated there to go out, and the capacity of the plant. Have ye that data for them 500 plants in Ireland?
The capacity of the treatment plants?
And the cubic meters of raw sewage that's coming in to try and sort it, or in some cases, in fairness, it's taken away by lorries and brought to a place that may have a bigger thing. But what I'm saying to you, do ye have that? And in my experience, what I see, and I think to be worth for you while going through the records, that funnily enough in wet weather, which would just contradict everything I was brought up with, but anyhow, that there is less loads to be brought away in the plants that needs taken away than there is in dry weather, which just totally has me bamboozled, and I'm a while looking at that game, but I just cannot understand it, and I'd like to know how it's happening.
I think we'd come back, Deputy, on that question. I know Jenny wants to add on the water quality.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I suppose, when we're doing our assessments, what really matters is what's going on in the river. And if there's a problem in the river, from whatever source, we'll pick that up. We'll see that in the monitoring data. And then you work back from that to figure out where it's coming from. And if it's coming from a wastewater treatment plant, then we'll see that, as you mentioned yourself, upstream is different than downstream. We have the monitoring data, and we also have the experiences of the local authority and LawPro who are out doing stream walks to actually try and pin down the issues. So ultimately what matters to us is the water quality, and we do pick up those problems, and then it's over to Irish Water to figure out how to fix it, if it's a plant.
Is it, what I'm trying to say, for the likes of the derogation, and with the best will in the world, if every farmer put every drop of water head into a tank, right, and never put out slurry free. Just think of this scenario. Near me, in Ballymoe, in County Galway, one of the cleanest rivers you can look at. There's monitor stations along, and it's good. But unfortunately, there's a treatment plant that was to be done for the last 7 or 8, 10 years. And when it comes to that point, the water obviously it's not as good a quality. So what I'm saying, the question I'm asking, when you do a report then, say, on the overall picture, obviously that if it's getting infected or getting contaminated, that water quality won't be as good, and it puts it down. When you do your overall assessment on water quality in Ireland, I presume that's then that river isn't in good condition, even though 4/5 of it is. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
So the island's river is made up of a number of different water
That's
bodies.
right,
There's
yeah.
3, I think.
4.
3 or 4, yeah. And so each is assessed differently, and we look at the monitoring data for each section separately, and then we look at the pressures that are impacting on each of those sections separately.
And when it comes into the last phase where it's getting in a bit of bother, because, and I know that it's earmarked to be done up, when you do your overall report, because that treatment plant isn't brought up to the spec that it is, does it bring down we'll say the good part because of that, or how does it work?
No, so ultimately it's based on the monitoring data. So if the monitoring data are unsatisfactory, well then that water body needs to be targeted for action.
Yeah.
And then you figure out what action it is that water body needs. So it's more driven by what the monitoring data are telling us than what is happening at a treatment plant.
Okay, and, okay, sorry, right. One last question would be this, the model that you use, for, I don't know whether the Department of Housing was in here and they said that the model that Europe wants us to attain to wouldn't be the model that they'd use. Do you have anything to say on that? And the modelling that you use when you go to an area, my understanding is you would get data to know how many cattle is in an area, how many treatment plants or whatever. Has that modelling ever been looked at to see that it's accurate? And do you know that to be, or is there any other different type modelling that you would be looking at as well, just to be doubly sure that the model, because like, there's many a thing in farming that you'd be told is the right way to do something, but you find out it mightn't be just as good as another way. That's what I'm trying to find out.
So that model was developed by UCD with funding from the EPA, and it has been published in scientific journals.
Yeah, it was peer-reviewed in journal and all that. And is there other...
well, that's debate. I mean, that's not to be cast aside. Like,
I know that,
that's rigorous process to go through.
Yeah.
To
and
have
is there
your
other
work
models
assessed by
there?
your peers.
Was there other crowds that done modelling or anything?
Are there other models?
There are lots of models internationally. They're all based on a similar concept that you.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Yeah. Okay, thank you. You might come back to me on that stuff on them plants to know. Do you know the cubes coming in and coming out on every plant?
Might come back to the committee on that, Dr. Cotter.
Yeah,
Deputy Collins.
Thank you very much.